welcome to Paddle and Portage podcast. We're sitting by a fire in the Boundary Waters. Late winter, coming off a canoecopia. Oh, is this silence sweet, isn't it?
Particularly sweet since earlier we heard a logging operation over the ridge outside of the Boundary Waters, obviously. We saw it coming in off the Arrowhead Trail near South Fowl. Very obvious where the new logging road had been cut, where the heavy machinery was. And then when we got in here, we heard it inside the wilderness.
Yeah. Also, unfortunately, we saw snowmobile tracks 4 miles in into the Boundary Waters, which was frustrating. And when we both caught sound of that motor, I think my mind first went to, oh, the snowmobile's out here and it's stuck maybe up on the ridge or on a portage. Thought maybe we were going to go find somebody and rescue them, but yeah, I think it was that logging operation. Those heavy machineries just make so much sound.
You can hear our fire over there. That sound doesn't annoy me as much as the machinery going in reverse and the engine revving. Beep, beep, beep.
Like that?
Pretty much exactly like that.
Does this sound of the fire annoy you at all?
No, I find it quite soothing.
Same.
So we're 3 days off of canoecopia. As you said, we're back from Madison, had a great event. We've already shared one episode about that experience there, and came out here largely to decompress, get away from things, the sounds of people and canoecopia and traffic and conversation. To come out here, and it's not that big of a deal to hear a truck. Kind of pisses me off to see the snowmobile tracks in here, but I'm still out here for a reason.
I mean, I feel like we have to mention it out of sheer obligation because it was a blip on the experience, but this feels, I haven't actually thought about it. I also am not hearing it anymore. I couldn't be more relaxed right now.
It's overcast day. We've got gray skies. There's a little bit of snow on the ice in certain sections, some on the hillside as well, overlooking the lake, but it's been through a couple thaw, freeze, a little bit of snow here and there. Cycles have now taken place in March multiple times. There's rain in the forecast this weekend. So we pretty much were able to fly out here. We've got spikes on the boots and so forth. And now that we're here, it all makes sense why we're here.
The need to come here to the place that motivates our entire work is essential, like conceptually, but really it's about the walk out. 2 hours of just steady rhythmic movement, occasional conversation and storytelling side by side on the ice, and the way hey, there's a red squirrel, and the way my whole nervous system just comes into a steady, slow rhythm of quiet and calm.
And that's really what Paddle and Portage is about, is getting out here, sharing experiences, sharing news and information about this place, but the whole roots of starting the company was celebrating the wilderness, talking about the wilderness, our experiences, other people's experiences, and including our experiences introducing people to the Boundary Waters, people who come to visit from out of state. We've had numerous instances of that this winter, and in the episode today, we're going to be sharing some of those stories.
I'm Jason with Ely Outfitting Company in downtown Ely, Minnesota. As the stories by Joe M. and the Paddle and Portage team inspire you to explore the Boundary Waters, Let our trail-savvy crew make your trip planning simple. If you haven't tried our free online trip routing service, complete with awesome interactive maps, check out elioutfittingcompany.com. And when you're ready, find complete outfitting services, lightweight canoe rentals, and comfy bunkhouse lodging at Ely Outfitting Company.
And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Tuscarora Lodge and Canoe Outfitters. Located on Round Lake, Tuscarora is a full-service Boundary Waters outfitter serving Gunflint Trail entry points. They're now booking 2025 canoe trips and cabins. Check them out online at tuscaroracanoe.com or on their Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook pages at Tuscarora Canoe. They've been busy up at Tuscarora sharing their updates that they do during the winter months, so check them out there for sure.
Sure look good.
We're gonna get a sizzle here. Come on now, sizzle, baby.
There it is. That's the sound of breakfast.
Paddle and Portage.
Welcome to the Paddle and Portage podcast. I'm here with guest chef and now permanent host of the Paddle and Portage podcast, known in these circles as Bill, Uncle Bill, by me.
Oregon Bill by Joe Fredericks. I love it when people ask me, where do you live? Or where in Oregon do you live? I live in Massachusetts.
It's our final camp morning out here in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. The chef in question on Paddle and Portage is our guest to this region. Not his first winter camping trip, certainly, but has taken on the mantle of camp chef with pride and a certain degree of seriousness in the responsibility. There's a lot to this fascinating human that is shoveling hash browns in a camp skillet. And we're going to get into a little bit of this human today because I find a lot of inspiration in this individual. And comfort, I might add. But I think it's best to start from the beginning, Bill.
Okay. Where is that?
Well,
Which beginning?
there's a few stories here.
Okay.
You know the man that I call Freddy Fresh, one that you call Bill. You've known him for some years now, prior to any of his podcast endeavors. Can you give me a brief explanation of your friendship with the man you know as Bill?
Yeah. It would have been 2003 that so one of our traveling companions today is Cousin Jeff, which is Joe Frederick's cousin. I lived with Cousin Jeff in college, and me and Jeff and Fran rented a Impala from a kind of a off-the-books rental car company because we were too young to rent a car.
So it was sort of, you rented it on the black market, so to speak.
That's right. So we got a early 90s Chevy Impala and continued to drive overnight to Missoula, Montana for spring break, and arrived at a house on the hill with a man with the wildest eyes I have ever laid these sets of eyes upon, standing on a stoop, staring at us, knowing that it was going to be pure insanity for the next 5 days. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "I don't know your names. You're all Bill." And I shit you not, I've never called him another name since then.
How many years ago was that?
It's 2003, 22 years.
So you've known this man as Bill
Yep.
for 22 years.
Yep.
And I know you've had numerous escapades
Oh, yeah.
into the wilderness and the front country with the man known as Bill.
Yep.
Joe Fredericks.
Yep.
But I'd like to dial in a little bit on the escapades that we shared this time last year.
Okay.
And I bring it up because you shared with me in the car the impact it had on you.
It did.
So would you mind describing the scenario as it took place last year before you get into the impact it had on you? Let's just talk about the what happened.
I would love to. And also, that's actually a really good segue because, as you and I have discussed ad nauseum over this trip, we're a very similar human.
You and I.
Psychologically, emotionally, how we were raised, who we get drawn to, the pitfalls of how we get drawn to certain individuals.
Yes.
How we internalize. We like to people please.
Both of us are, prone to people pleasing.
Prone to people
We
pleasing.
like to keep people happy around us. It's how we survive in the world.
We do. But it's interesting. So part of what I have unintentionally and now very intentionally tried to do is surround myself, not entirely, because then I wouldn't meet someone like you, who's a kindred spirit, but I like to surround myself with people like Fred, like Joe Fredericks. And that is a certain sense of absolute fearlessness. Not reckless at all, but a stubbornness and a surety of oneself and a confidence and not being afraid to, not feeling a need to people please. And I think that comes out, that's why I love coming out to the wilderness with Joe, is because he is also fearless in his own ability. He knows what his ability is. He's confident in his ability, and he stays right within that window, and he doesn't care about others' opinion of it. And that is something that I don't have internally. Well, I have more now than ever, but he teaches me a hell of a lot because of that. And I find it one of the most impressive qualities a human can have is a sense of assurity and not needing to have everyone approve of them. And I mention that because, full circle, we can get into last year.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Well, first time winter camping ever. Joe has always talked to me about winter camping, showed it to me. Cousin Jeff went winter camping and raved about it, but I was pretty frightened. Yet I'm in a very, very, very adventurous spirit. And so I went in with Joe, first time meeting you, LB, which was a great pleasure of my life.
Agreed.
And had the most wonderful trip in the world. And then the last day we woke up to 8 inches of fresh snow. And it was a heavy kind of snow. And there was only 3 of us. And we had pretty heavy packs. Sleds. Yeah, thank you. Pokes. And we had to get out, and we had made the miscalculation of taking a route that took us across a point that admittedly had some thin ice. And we stayed very close to the shore.
Prepared for thin ice.
Stayed a foot off the shore.
Yeah.
But my world kind of collapsed on me when I broke through the ice and went up just below the knees. And I didn't have the proper footwear. And you guys were much more visually concerned than I was. And then it proceeded to be the next 4 hours of some of the most grueling, mentally scary, not quite physically scary, but mentally scary 4 hours of my life. Just hiking, thinking that I couldn't get through each next step, sweating heavily and yet blisteringly cold at the same time, feeling like the sled was going to break behind me because of the way, am I wrong to say that snow condition was unusually insane?
Yeah, just to give a description, when Bill broke through the ice, his boots got wet, his sled got wet, your snowshoes got wet, and immediately due to the cold, there was ice formed on the bottom of the sled, ice formed on the bottom of the snowshoes, ice formed on Bill's feet, and with the addition of the fresh snowfall, pulling a sled through that snow, struggling with the slush and ice that was forming on the sled, on your snowshoes, it was physically demanding is an understatement.
You were extremely quiet, which alarmed me.
Yes.
And Joe had to put some of his weight in my sled because he thought he was going to rip his sled. And Joe admitting any physical discomfort was an extremely frightening thing to my little brain.
Yeah. It was a little scary given the temps, the exposure of the open water off that point, and the grueling task of getting out. And we did make it out.
We did.
And then when we got you to the exit, there was another challenge.
So we got to our pullout, which was a friend of yours' cabin. So I thought I was at safety. You looked at your sled and realized that your skis had fallen off, and it was already dusk. The temperatures were dropping even more. And you and Joe decided to turn around because you figured it was going to be at the flow of McFarland. So maybe half a mile.
Yeah, we went back to look for the skis.
You turned around, left me, and I went into the cabin. In retrospect, I should have asked for the keys to the car.
I looked at you, and your face was a mix of white and gray.
And I sat in that cabin for 45 minutes. Didn't take off my sopping wet boots. Didn't take off much layers, and all that sweat froze like icicles to me. And I sat there for the 45 minutes thinking I was going to throw up, started shaking/convulsing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. A little mild hypothermia kicking in.
Little mild hypothermia kicking in. And that moment is when I realized that I was not doing the proper physical preparedness to do a trip like that.
In your lifestyle in general.
My lifestyle, using alcohol too much, not working out, not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was truly a pivotal moment that told me that I needed to figure out how to, if I want to continue doing this stuff, and I need to take way more responsibility. And then it's like, if I want to keep being the proper parent and the proper husband and the proper friend and the proper colleague, I should probably try to take care of everything holistically just a bit more anyway. So I returned home, and it took me a good 6 months. But then around September, October, well, actually, no, it started 3 months before that. I started paying attention to my physical state of things and started working out for the first time in forever. I'm a very active person. I'm not unfit in any means, but I wasn't fit for this type of life.
Yeah, and there was some maybe overlap there to how you were just kind of coping with some challenges in life.
Many challenges, and when you cope, you just kind of want to disappear. I give all myself to my family during the day. Family goes to bed, and then it's real easy. Try to disappear just a little bit with that beer or whatever it is. And that then doesn't really give you motivation to get up and move in a healthy direction the next day.
Right.
But thinking about that, well, I always thought that I was the next trip, so that I like to alternate a fall trip out here and then a winter trip. So this year was going to be a fall trip, but I didn't like the taste in my mouth that last hike gave me. So then starting in November, I really had a full lifestyle change. I'm more present for my family, I'm more present for myself. And here I am, feeling absolutely the most healthy I've ever been in my life. And sure as shit, it's snowing outside on the last day, and the running joke is that, well, looks like it's going to be another 6 inches of snow. Mm-hmm. And there is a huge seed in the back of my head that's a little afraid for today. Even though I know it's going to be fine. That kind of fear is still there.
Well, this is the moment in which you are going to see if you experience some of the payoff of your change in your choices. And that's exciting, but also you never really know until you do it.
That is true. And that's why I love coming out to places like this, because it's not just a vacation into the woods, it's an access point to how you want to live the rest of your life. And we can eat good food and catch good fish, tell good jokes, fart in tents, But ultimately, when you're living on the edge of this type of danger, it's an access point to how you want to cope with being a colleague, being a partner, being a dad, how you want to treat your body, how you want to walk through life. And I just think there's no better access point than being in the wilderness, stripping away all that other crap to take a reflection and an inventory of kind of how you're doing everything else.
Beautiful. You ready to take this conversation to the next level?
Oh, God. Oh, Lord. Yeah.
So one of the most fantastic parts about winter camping is that you sort of play hard all day. We fished hard. We explored lots of new places and found new terrain. And I'd say we hit it pretty good. But then come darkness, it's into the hot tent. And literally hours of just passing the time together. And admittedly, with this crew, there's a lot of giggling and laughter and idiotic things to be enjoyed. And there's also been some kind of heavier things that have come up on this trip. How is it doing both?
Oh, that's the essence of life. Doing both.
I just want to say the favorite part about that very real conversation is that preceding it was the stories of Bill's saving the life of a young child that had begun drowning when falling off a sailboat, cousin Jeff nearly being killed in a goat slaughter in the middle of, where was that? Albania. And of course, a recount of the numerous times that Joe Fredericks has nearly offed himself over the course of his life. And these are the kind of conversations you get to have winter camping, sitting next to a wood stove for hours upon hours in the night. And here is Joe Fredericks straggling into the hot tent, tying up another hook. How's it going out there, Freddie?
Slow, not quite steady, slow. Calling in the reinforcements.
Hoping for that last bite on this last morning of another fine trip into the Boundary Waters. Who are you?
My name is Cousin Jeff Frawley. I'm Joe's cousin, and I live in New Mexico now, but I grew up in Minnesota, and Cousin Joe and I have been doing all sorts of fun stuff in the great state of Minnesota for more or less my entire life.
What I love about being out here with you, Jeff, one of the things is that you know the human Joe Fredericks before he was ever a podcast host or a sort of slightly public persona, before anybody knew who he was as an author. And I get to hear all these great stories about wild antics. Who's the Joe Fredericks that you know? And what's it like being with the Joe Fredericks that is alive today?
Well, yeah, growing up there was definitely the antics, all sorts of funny stuff we'd do, trouble we'd get into, quite a lot of trouble. But, I mean, even from when I was a kid, one of the things I noticed about him and definitely grew to admire is that he can connect with just about anybody. And he's really interested in who they are as people and then their stories that they have to tell, the knowledge and wisdom they have to pass on. And, I mean, he's been connecting with people and talking to people since, we were 6 or 7 years old and running around acting like goons. But he would always find a way to meet new people, bring new people into the fold. And so I think, the fact that he's made kind of a life and a career out of this, it makes a lot of sense, but it's also been really neat to watch that, he uses this as a medium to give voices to people, some who don't know anything about, the Boundary Waters and doing these sorts of adventures, and then up to the experts who are the ones who've been doing it their entire lives and have all the knowledge and information to share. And so it's pretty neat to see him get people to tell their stories, share that information, and those lives with other people out there. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. It sounds like that's a big dynamic in your friendship. Like you guys have a mutual desire to explore new places. And how have you aligned in that superpower?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I think one of the cool things is that, when we were in our formative years, teenage years, 20s, we both lived in some pretty neat places. I've lived in the Southwest for a lot of my adult life, and then he's been in Oregon, Montana, Boundary Waters, and so we've always had some pretty fun times visiting each other, and then we always kind of have a few new places we want to explore so that when we get together, we go out and do that together and check it out for the first time and always have a blast. So definitely his adventuresome spirit and his ability to kind of push the boundaries of what is sane and safe and get out there and do all sorts of stuff I would not do on my own, for sure.
I've witnessed that you both draw out a little bit of insanity in each other, as I've heard in the stories, and now that's been channeled into adventures. And it sounds like you both are capable of pushing the limits a little further together than you maybe would separately.
Absolutely. And I guess I would like to think that as we've gotten older and more mature, we have healthy outlets for that insanity now.
Was one of those healthy outlets bushwhacking to the top of that beautiful overlook yesterday?
Oh, for sure. That was such a great view. Sometimes you forget in Minnesota, there's places that you can get up on top and see how amazing the landscape is and the topography. And so, yeah, we were able to check out, the lakes that we've been camping on and tromping around, and that was really beautiful. It was great.
When was the last time you bushwhacked through the wilderness, through snow, going to some place without a map just to see what you could see?
It's been a while, but that was what was fun about it, don't you think? Like, not kind of knowing where we were going. Just using the landscape and the topography to figure out the plan. It's great.
I really appreciate that, because in my mind, that's no different than the internal journey as well. Have you forged any sort of fondness for this place, and do you want to come back?
Absolutely, yeah. I've mostly been up here in the summers and falls, and it's great to be on the water. It's great to see the leaves changing, great to go swimming, all those things, but yeah, when you're out here in the winter, it's just a totally different world. I like that feeling of you're in a place that, there's nobody else here. It almost feels like another dimension or something. Kind of like you were talking about with Kyle, too. It's just a nice excuse to spend a few hours in a tent with people each night. And, you spend a lot more time kind of connecting with people, I feel like, when you go winter camping than when you do in the summer, where there's all these different distractions and things that you can get up to. Not that we haven't been doing that on this trip, too, but it's just nice to have that forced time around a fire or in a tent at night. So definitely be back.
Do you have anything you really want to say that I haven't asked you about yet?
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Oh, God.
So I don't know if this came up with Kyle earlier, but I feel like we've been in the presence of a maestro camp chef. Would you call those burgers the other night the best campfire meal you've had in a long time?
Are you referencing the test pilot we experienced for Paddle and Portage?
Yeah.
I have never eaten so well in the Boundary Waters ever, in the summertime included, as I have on this winter camping trip. Let's see, those were both prime rib patties and veggie burgers. Ribeye patties on ciabatta buns with, what was that sauce?
Japanese barbecue.
Japanese barbecue.
And pickles, don't forget the pickles.
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
With fresh sliced Colby Jack. The sweetest pickles a human could imagine. Brought in a bag, not in a can or bottle. And
caramelized onions.
Caramelized onions.
Bill.
And my brain exploded.
Mine too, and I was having the veggie burgers, so I can't imagine how you carnivores felt.
Come unzip this tent real quick.
And seems like a very appropriate time that we're going to turn this recording off and eat our final chef's made Paddle and Portage breakfast burritos.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by North Country Canoe Outfitters. Every one of their trips is custom planned and based on your interests, what type of trip you want to do, what length of trip you want to do. number of campsites and portages, family trip, mother-daughter trip, school, church group, scouts. All abilities and levels of the group are accommodated. They got lakeside overnight accommodations before and after your trip. They offer BWCA and Quetico options. Outfitting from canoes only through canoe and food combos to 3 levels of completely outfitted. They've got what John Scheffelbaum at North Country describes as a menu second to none, certified Angus beef brand steaks. John started the company 42 years ago, and now about 32,000 paddlers later, he's still individually mapping out every trip for every party. North Country Canoe Outfitters is 6 miles from Ely. They go to 25 different BWCA entry points, along with the Quetico Park via Prairie Portage and Lac LaCroix entries. North Country Canoe Outfitters is the company, and the website, boundarywaters.com. I got to ask John how he got that. boundarywaters.com. North Country Canoe Outfitters. Appreciate their support on the podcast.
Strolling out of the campsite, the fine shelter of the woods and trees that offer protection from the wind and elements. Even on a calm night, it creates a cozy feeling of shelter to step into the company of the white pine, red pine, spruce and cedar, even a few birches. Woke up to quarter inch, half inch of snow covering the landscape. It's like a nice reset when the snow falls. It covers all of our tracks around the ice and all of our movements about camp, and makes everything have a fresh new start feeling, which is one of my favorite things about the snow. Here I'm walking between some auger holes that I just punched through the ice with Joe Fredericks. Yeah, walking past a wooden tip-up and a pink tip-up, and no flags up yet this morning, but it's still early. The sun probably just rose. It's an overcast sky, but with the snow falling, the light's just filtering in to begin the day.
Just pulled it right out.
I didn't want to bring that up again, but since you did.
Yeah.
Morning, LB.
Interesting call.
How you feeling this morning?
Confidence is high. Tube jig in. Vexlar cranking. Snow coming down. Beautiful morning.
We got a nice approach here, a string of lines in the water. Hoping we catch them at any particular depth. Don't want to give away your secrets, of course.
Well, we're fishing off a reef and it drops off from shore. It stays shallow for 50 feet or more out, and then takes a nice nosedive into some boulders. Listen to this beauty. That's high performance machine.
When it doesn't make a sound, you know it's functioning properly. Stroll over here to Uncle Bill. Jigging rod in the right hand and a cup of coffee in the left hand. How'd you feel when I challenged you to an early morning wrestling match on the ice?
Felt full of vigor.
Were
Full of life. Full of confidence.
How about fear? Did you have fear at the way I could best you?
Yeah, but I didn't want to admit it to myself or to you.
I couldn't see it in your eyes. You hit it so well.
I don't know how you could. Like I said, I was hiding it from myself like a true man.
Truman. Like a Truman.
Yeah, like Truman Show.
I love that
Like
movie.
Jim Carrey when he freaks out.
God, that's a good one. Indeed. How you feeling this morning?
Pretty good. I truly had one of the better night sleeps ever. That was a really good sleep.
Full of contentment?
Full of contentment. Everyone's stories fill in my head. It was really nice. Those hot tents, it's a different type of sleep. Living on the edge of just pure, bitter cold. And yet somehow in that tiny little bubble, you got to forget about it.
Toasty warm.
Toasty warm.
It's like we might as well be sitting in Joe Frederick's living room in front of his wood stove.
Pretty much.
Just smells a lot worse.
At Joe Frederick's?
In the hot tent.
Right. Yeah. No. Right. Yeah.
Well, let's see if we get some fish this morning.
Yeah, I'm jigging on something new here. I don't know what it is. Just to give it a little new flavor.
Yesterday morning, as soon as we got the holes in, I put my skates on because this is some of the best ice in the region right now. And I took off skating down the lake, and this morning I feel full of regret because there was nobody here to help Joe when he hooked into a fish. And though the smooth ice does still call me with this little bit of snow on it, I can't leave the post this morning. I had my bliss, and there'll be different bliss when we pull one of those fish through the ice.
You had some good runs of bliss this week.
Yeah.
You bastards.
It can't be said enough that the reason we do what we do and love what we do is because we love being here. And for all sorts of reasons that we could go on and about, this is the place where things make the most sense to us. And when we're here, nothing else exists here but being here. And so it makes even more sense that we want to show that to people. We have to. How can you not? How can you love something so much and cherish it and be stingy with it?
Well, look at this site. This is where we were with Cousin Jeff and Oregon Bill on that trip from earlier in the winter. That was like early January when they were here. And we're back here now in this exact same location. And when you see it, when you're here, look at this. This is crazy. This is like my favorite lake, probably my favorite campsite, and it's just absolutely spectacular.
One of the things I love about this place particularly is how much bushwhacking I've done coming out here with you while you're fishing. And so that means I know these little ridge lines intimately, and I can look out across this great big lake and be like, oh yeah, I stood up there with Cousin Jeff. We stood up there at that ridge that's 2 ridges set back from the lake and stared down at this campsite. Or when you and I came out here with Bill the last time, I stood on that ridge over there. And, whoa, that one a little further down, I should go stand on that one this time. Just the possibilities are endless because the peace and quiet and solitude just allows me to know, like, what do I want right now? Oh, that. I'm going to go do it. Whether it's cutting wood or sipping on some tea or having a snack or running into the woods.
And when we got to share that experience in January, there were a lot of busy moments. We did some bushwhacking, as you're saying, fished some multiple lakes, and traveled a lot of different miles.
The boys got some fish.
Yeah, I mean, we were working hard, but we also had these moments where we got to sit down and chat with them at camp. And just as Oregon Bill was saying, you know, we can have this beautiful experience, but we don't need to sugarcoat it all the time and just tell you that this is all the best, greatest, most spectacular, harmonious thing. Like from our experience even today, coming out and we hear the logging truck and we see the snowmobile tracks many miles into the wilderness.
When you're out here with people that you know well and you are yourself with, that means that you are yourself. I mean, myself is a cantankerous, crabby, terrified human at times, and also blissful and full of joy. But you gotta be ready for it all, and you gotta be ready to handle it all without losing your pals. We've been through those time and time again.
And so later in the season, much more recently, we had another opportunity to share this place, the wilderness, the boundary waters, in winter, with some new friends, although they're not new to the podcast.
We first heard from them last summer, basically, when you were doing your artist residency on Mallard Island on Rainy Lake, and you met some of the most amazing folks through that residency experience, living on that island in a sort of artist community for those days. And a couple of those folks who chimed in with their transformative experience that was happening on the island and was surrounded by water came back.
The architects, Emma and Natalya.
Well, Natalya, we find ourselves in the wilderness. Joe's not here.
Nope.
He's not part of our conversation.
Nope.
He didn't lead us.
His humor aren't here.
His humor did not show up. Look, we're learning so many things today. How to do a tip-up, how to operate a microphone, how to catch a giant lake trout when it comes out of the water. What did you think of that lake trout, Natalya?
I thought it was beautiful, and I kind of wish we'd stayed around to watch an eagle eat its head. It was shimmery, and I'm really excited to share the photo of you holding it with everyone you know. But we did get to see, what are they, the whiskey jacks feast upon the entrails.
It was more slippery than I thought it would be.
The fish?
Yeah, slimy.
It was not as slimy as that pike this summer that like exuded ooze. That was a slimy fish. Are all pikes slimy? Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing so far of the day for you?
How hard it is to drill a hole in the ice. I guess that's not surprising though. Like that should be hard, right? Like it shouldn't be easy. I thought I would be better at pulling the sled than I was. That was also hard.
I thought you were pretty good at it.
I guess, I don't know, I'm surprised that it was just not so cold in general, but we knew that going in today. But when we decided to do this trip weeks ago, I think we were more scared than actually we needed to be.
I think that's yet to be discovered, if we were the right amount of scared or not.
So far, so good. I mean, the trip isn't just the treks out. We had great dinner. We had a good breakfast. Met some people. We walked in the darkness last night along the shore of Grand Marais.
I think that was my favorite part so far. Yeah.
I think there's still 2 days of favorite parts to happen. Right?
What day is it today?
Monday.
What in the next 2 days do you want to explore more deeply in this wilderness area?
I do want to catch a fish. I don't know if that's exploring.
Yeah.
But, I mean, also helping you catch a fish is good. I don't think I've had enough. I don't know enough about what there is to explore. I think that's the whole point, is that we didn't come with expectations.
Low expectations.
No, not low expectations.
No expectations.
No expectations.
I have a hard time reflecting on things in the moment, so it's overwhelming. I mean, this view right here is kind of the most overwhelming part, but pushing through. Just grateful to be here, I think. See something completely new.
We're here again. Well, is it on?
I think so.
All right. I just filleted a fish for the first time. Potentially the only time. But it actually was, I don't know, kind of invigorating.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't get squeamish, so it was mostly I was just scared of ruining our dinner. I don't really mind the blood or... I'm glad that I was able to share the ripping of the stomach open with someone else. I can't believe it fit that much food in its belly, because it also threw up a bunch of minnows when we caught it. Probably why it threw it up.
Hungry trout.
And now it's just a bunch of blood on the snow. How was it watching, Emma?
Fascinating. Yeah, a whole experience today. catching fish, killing fish, filleting fish.
You killed your first fish today, Emma. You smacked a fish on the head.
I partially killed my own fish today. I needed a fish kill assist, but...
How did it feel?
Okay, I think. Yeah, I think the saying a quick thank you once we got it up on the ice before killing it. And it's, yeah, I think the killing it as quickly as possible is best.
Well, I'll say I was surprised 2 days ago, when you said you had a very visceral reaction to the idea of killing a fish. Like, that surprised me about you for some reason. I thought you'd be okay with it. So I thought today was a pretty big deal for you.
It's a milestone. I mean, I've only done catch and release before, so I'm excited to eat it and enjoy it and really bring that experience full circle. I think just killing it is maybe the midway point. So, yeah, I think that will be the crowning achievement of today. Dinner.
Yeah, dinner.
Dinner. Yeah. Right? That's why we're here. That's why we're doing it. Dinner. And then we're with really great people. We get to share the dinner and continue the adventure.
Delight would be pulling this fish out of that hole because, well, Joe caught it, but apparently it's very easy to lose a fish at that point if you're alone. So it was nice to be needed in that moment to pull it out. And also the delight is I don't know if that's the right word, but I was intrigued by the gutting of the fish, doing it myself. I've never done that. A lot of it was about feeling it, not actually how, all that explains how you do it, but because you can't actually see inside that body. Also, I've always loved building a fire, so it was kind of nice to just keep that going all day. But that's not new, it's just always enjoyable. What delighted you, Emma?
There was big excitement when we first got here. A lot of tip-up flags going all at once. Chaos.
Did you hear that was one fish?
Yes, all one fish, wreaking havoc. But then, yeah, I think the delight came from learning new things and sharing all of the things. So, could not have brought that fish up without Baxley's help and patient guidance. Being patiently talked through those steps. It felt like a big achievement. But other delightful things, I actually love pulling that sled because it's really hard and it's slightly scary when it pushes you down a steep slope and you have to be the sled. And yeah, once you embrace being the sled, things change. It's not so scary.
The roots of the trip from Emma and Natalya, Emma coming from the Twin Cities and Natalya from Chicago, goes back to Mallard Island and the artist residency on Rainy Lake, when we'd be sharing stories about our lives as a group, and often my stories talked about, of course, the Boundary Waters and my love for this place, but also my love of this place in the winter, and ice fishing, winter camping, exploring, taking on the cold, the challenges of the winter, and that was something that neither of them had experienced in any capacity, basically, and certainly not in the Boundary Waters. And so you hear from people we have on the podcast. We do a Canoecopia fairly regularly. I'd like to come check that out. I'll come up and do that. And it's not that people don't mean it. It's just life's busy. But Emma and Natalya followed through. And they traveled long ways in the winter to get up here and do this. It seemed like the experience was everything that they were looking for, or even more so.
So we are on a large expanse of snow on a lake in the northernmost part of Minnesota. We can see Canada from here. We had a short portage here from the car, but physically the space, it's mostly sky and white, with the horizon is the only dark part of the forested landscape on either side. I'm curious to hear Emma's more landscape description of it, but compared to yesterday was all blue sky, and that's kind of what blinded me, and I looked at all day, or tried to look at because the snow was so blinding. And today is a little different because you can actually look at everything in a less pained way. Yeah, there's wind, but I don't know. Thanks to slightly overdressing, I feel fine.
And your fire building skills. I would say, compared to yesterday, this feels like a more long and protected space. Yesterday felt very expansive, and this feels like a place, a distinct place. The views are more directed. Less horizon, perhaps, and more, we are in this one lake and nestled in. So the portage was worth it, to be in a more protected spot. It's like a hug from the topography and the trees.
I do feel like yesterday's, it didn't feel less of a place. It felt like many places. Like everything felt linear, and that it was because we were walking more. But and the portages felt, there were two, right, or one, but it felt more. We had several destinations, and this one, while this is still a destination, it's more of a place because we spent a lot more time here. The other one, we were traveling, like I could almost do like a mental map image of us walking from one lake, portaging to another lake, to a waterfall. But I don't know, I'm also curious, Emma, because I didn't walk across the lake and you did, if that changed how you think about. I kind of just stuck to this one area and gathered wood back and forth.
Well, today included more time for curious poking, which is one of my favorite things to do in the landscape. So just maybe that's why it feels like more of a place. Got to know it a little bit, meet some of its friends through tracks, otter and wolf tracks, special trees that are memorable and beautiful, fire scars. Yeah, just wandering up to things and saying how you do is great.
Hey, how you do?
How you do? I think that's all we have.
Freddie, I know you love taking people out. There's so many folks who are in our lives because you've invited them into the woods with us, and they've become dear friends, and they've gone on their own trips.
Pastor Dave, Eric Dickus, all those people that we've met either through the podcast specifically or who we knew sort of from previous life experiences, and they just became part of our Paddle and Portage world.
Absolutely. And I think I want to say for myself that, we started coming out here together years ago, and winter was our first overnight trip together.
Winchell Lake.
At Winchell. Never forget the negative 32 degrees on the dash as we drove up the Gunflint Trail and set out. But I am very aware that when I am caught up in the chaos of life, in my own insignificant world and my production work and my relationships and my social life, you remind me it's time to get out here. And I'm I'm so grateful for that you pull me out of my madness to get sane again over and over and over again. You also do that for me. And I want to say thank you. And I want to know, Freddie, is it an impulse? Do you just know when you have to, when you hit the tipping point? Or do you know you got to go so you don't reach the tipping point? What's it like for you?
For me, it's about right before the tipping point. I went on a bit of a day trip ice fishing, getting in there binge right before Canoecopia. And that included them and Natalya trip. You were around for part of that. But also before then, I had been out with people from Cook County, the Gunflint, fishing early mornings, 4:30 a.m., getting up, knowing Canoecopia was less than a week away, because I just needed to. It wasn't even like a consideration. This was part of the assignment. And I think that's the biggest difference for us as media who report on the Boundary Waters and share stories from the Boundary Waters, is that we're here. We live here. We get out here very regularly. It's part of the business and part of our lifestyle. It's not a once a year and the rest of the time we're making phone calls from the Twin Cities or some other place and trying to talk with any sort of sense of authority or knowledge in the tangible way about what it's like out here, what people are feeling out here, what people are seeing. And I'm just really connected to the Boundary Waters now, more so than ever, since we started Paddle and Portage, and never really even thought that was gonna be the way. I love this place now more than ever, even though it's almost a complete immersion of work.
But for you, and for me, when I'm out here with you or on my own, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
No.
Are we working right now? Do you feel like we're working right now?
No. I'm feeling completely natural.
Right. Like, you didn't say at peace because you haven't caught a lake trout yet. But naturally angsty, right? Because you're staring, you keep looking at those tip-ups out in the ice room camp like, like, when's it gonna happen? When's the bite gonna happen? Am I right?
Guilty as charged. I won't even plead the fifth. Guilty, Your Honor. Guilty!
Well, this trip will not be a success if Freddie does not get a lake trout, and it'll be a disaster if one gets on the line and gets off. So we better focus our attention, Freddie, on some of the tasks at hand. I actually drug my skate skis out here. When we came out here last time, I got to skate in those blissful ice skating conditions with Cousin Jeff and Bill, and I'm going to skate ski now here 2 months later.
It's a beautiful time to adventure. The winter is winding down. It's been a spectacular winter from conditions and the real bite and clawing that winter can do. And we're so grateful for all the friends that came and spent time with us this winter, and all the people who we would love to introduce and share these experiences with.
I love you guys and gals and boths.
Those skis are calling your name, and that tip-up's calling mine. What I'm going to do is bring in that second line, get out there, start jigging. I got to move out to 40 feet.
Oh, my gosh.
I think that's the problem.
You go, Freddie.
You go. Get going. It's time to get the Vexy working.
Get out of here.
Ah!
Out in the night, the waves beat the shore. You can hear them pounding, you can hear them roar. Oh, roll me, rock me in my dreams. You can roll me, rock me in my dreams. So I like to sing, I love to dance. I play the fool if I got the chance. All around the campfire light, all around campfire light. All round, all round, all round the campfire light.
Well, that's the final morning of a very excellent trip. Cut the bullshit. Unfiltered thought, Jeff. Cousin Jeff, how do you feel at this moment?
I wish I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but other than that, I feel great.
What would that peanut butter and jelly sandwich provide you?
A little bit of energy and warmth to go out into the cold.
What awaits you in such a destination?
Nothing but pristine, cold morning air.
Sounds like you've been spending too much time with Joe Fredericks.